Zoom, again, you may have some issues there. So please make sure that you are using Firefox, Chrome, or Edge. So that's what we have there for Zoom tips. We'll go ahead and move to our next slide. So again, I just want to go ahead and welcome everybody here. So as you can see, we have some bullet points listed as to kind of why we're here today. So first off, it is to discuss the incident management module in MWMA. So we're going to go over what your role as a case manager is there, kind of how you're going to interact with that module on a daily basis. We also want to talk about incident reporting. So that is a large part of what we'll be talking about today. In fact, it's kind of the main priority. So we're going to be talking about different reports associated with MWMA, specifically incident management. And we're going to talk about your roles and responsibilities there. So what we're hoping to achieve by the end of this is for everyone to feel comfortable with your responsibilities as an MWMA user, and also to understand that incident reporting aspect. So again, understanding which of these reports you're responsible for and how you're going to interact with those on a daily basis. So at this point, we'll go ahead and move to our next slide. And before we jump into our actual material for the day, we just have a few housekeeping things we want to go over with. So the first, we have knowledge checks. So we're going to talk about specifically the knowledge checks that are throughout today's training. So again, you will be asked to complete knowledge checks just to gauge your participation in today's training. So if you see a polling question pop up, again, you're expected to answer that. We will do our best to, again, get you prepared for those. If you hear me call out specific pieces of information, or if I'm reiterating a point, please write that down because it may pop up later on in that knowledge check. Just something to keep in mind. Again, we will be gauging your participation there. We will be checking that, so please do participate. In terms of questions, again, you have that Q&A button on the very bottom of your control panel there. If you have any questions, please utilize that. We may not answer all questions in real time just because we have a lot to get through today, but at the very end of today's webinar, we do have a Q&A session. We have our subject matter expert on the line, Alicia Clark. She'll be here to answer your questions pertaining to MWMA. If for any reason we do not get through all of your questions today, we are actively compiling a frequently asked questions FAQ document, which will be sent out at a later date. So again, even if we don't get to today, we'll be following up with you on those questions. In terms of webinar objectives, we want to provide an overview of that MWMA incident management module. So we want to make sure you understand how what your responsibilities are for that module, and again, how you'll interact with it. We also want to make sure that you gain knowledge of that incident management module and how it should be utilized, right? How can we utilize this on a daily basis to provide better services for our citizens of the Commonwealth? So again, that's what our objectives are for today. We'll go ahead and move to our next slide. As with any training or webinar that we do, there's always a training proficiency and evaluation aspect associated with it. So in terms of training proficiency, we are actively tracking your participation today through Zoom. So again, if you are in the webinar right now, please stay for the duration of the webinar. If you leave early, again, we'll be able to track that, and we may have to follow up with you with additional emails, communications, and just resources. Also, like I said before, those knowledge check scores, we are actively tracking those as well. So again, please make sure throughout today's webinar, if there's a knowledge check question that pops up, please answer it. Again, we want to make sure everyone's being actively engaged and retaining the information. Also, one last piece here, we have a post-training evaluation. So with every training we do, we offer a post-training evaluation. And the purpose of that is really just to make sure that we're collecting your feedback. Again, we value your feedback. It's what helps us to deliver better trainings every time. So we want to know what you liked about this presentation. We want to know what you didn't like and what we can improve upon. So again, please make sure at the very end that you go ahead and fill out that post-training evaluation. Okay, we can go to our next slide. So this brings us to our introduction. So again, we're going to go over just our agenda next. We'll go to our next slide. As you can see on our agenda, we're going over introduction, which is just general housekeeping at this point. Then we're going to jump into module 1, which is our MWMA overview. So we're going to give you an overview of the Medicaid waiver management application, the purpose of that system, and the benefits associated with it. We'll also go over in that overview each of our reports that we'll be talking about today. That includes the initial incident report, risk mitigation investigation report, and case manager fact find report. So we'll give you a high-level overview during that module 1, and then after that we'll start breaking down each of those reports in greater detail. After module 1, we'll jump into module 2, which is our initial incident report. So we're going to break down exactly when you as a case manager would conduct such a report in MWMA and how you're going to do that in the system. So we'll take you through screen by screen what that process looks like. After that, we have module 3, which is our risk mitigation and investigation report. That's a follow-up report to the initial incident report. So we'll take you through that, make sure you understand screen by screen how to navigate that, as well as when it is appropriate for you as a case manager to conduct that report. After module 3, we'll go into a 10-minute break. So we'll give everyone a chance to go ahead and stretch their legs. If you need some afternoon coffee, get that as well. And when we come back, we will go into module 4, which is our case manager fact-finding report. So again, that is specific to you as a case manager. We'll spend some time there going over when it's appropriate to conduct that report and how it's done screen by screen in the system. Module 5, that is our question and answer session. So like I said, Alicia Clark is on the line with us right now. She'll be here to answer your questions that you have about today's material. Again, please do make sure that you stick around for that Q&A session. That's your chance to clarify anything that we've gone over today. After that, we have our 6th module, which is the evaluation. Like I said, please make sure to fill that out at the very end so we can know, again, what you liked about today's training and what can be improved upon for the future. All right, so we'll go ahead to our next slide. And that's going to bring us to our icebreaker. So our icebreaker today, the way this will work is I'm going to go ahead and read through the icebreaker, and then we're going to bring up a polling question. So something to point out, like I said before, these polling questions will be used for our knowledge checks throughout today's training. So if you're not seeing the polling question pop up right now, please let us know. We'll try and work through that with you. So if you have any issues with it, please let us know in the chat. But 2 things to keep in mind. 1, the polling feature may not work for you if you have your pop-up blocker on. So go ahead and disable your pop-up blocker. And then also make sure that you're not using Internet Explorer. Those are the 2 main reasons in which the polling questions may not pop up for you. So again, if it doesn't pop up, troubleshoot with those 2 first and then let us know in the chat. All right, so our first icebreaker here is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? Would it be A, to fly, B, X-ray vision, C, super strength, D, teleportation, or E, mind reading? And I'm going to go ahead and bring up that polling question right now. Again, you'll see it pop up in just a second, and please go ahead and answer. All right, it looks like about 88% of us have gone ahead and voted. So if we can, let's get a few more people to vote, and then we'll go ahead and close this polling question. All right, we're going to go ahead and end it. And we will share our results. Also, something I want to point out is, if everyone could please just refrain from putting their answers in the chat. Again, we want to make sure as we move forward, especially with our knowledge check questions, we're not giving away any answers. So if you can, please utilize that polling feature. It looks like we're about tied here between teleportation and mind reading. So in 2 very popular options, flying would be pretty cool as well. So we'll go ahead and stop sharing results. We'll move to our next screen. Now this brings us to module 1, which is our MWMA overview. So like I said, we're going to give a brief overview of the Medicaid waiver management application, and then we'll jump into greater detail a little bit later on. So module 1, our objectives are, first and foremost, we want to recap MWMA incident management functionality. So specifically the initial incident report, risk mitigation investigation report, and case manager fact-finding report. So we're going to give that high-level overview now and then break down that into greater detail later on. We also want to make sure that everyone understands the updates to MWMA incident management for you as case manager. So those are our 2 main objectives here. We'll go into our next slide. So the overview of MWMA, again, that stands for the Medicaid Waiver Management Application. That's what MWMA is a system that supports all phases of an individual's Medicaid HCBS waiver enrollment. So that includes modifications to their case, reassessments, and ongoing management activities. So quite useful. In terms of benefits to the Medicaid, or benefits of the Medicaid Waiver Management Application, first off, it's an integrated system, so it really allows a variety of user groups to come together and provide services for citizens. Also has consistency in recording information. So again, with multiple user groups utilizing this system, it's important that there's consistency in the way that they go about recording information for citizens in order to provide the best service possible. Also, electronic documentation is quite useful, minimizes the use of paper, environmentally friendly, and also allows us to have that central data hub where we can store all of that information. Automatically generated tasks are a feature of the system as well. And I don't know about you, but whenever I get into a system, I greatly appreciate when it's task-based, just because I know I can click start on that task, navigate through the necessary screens, and when I click submit, I know I've done my job. Lastly, past and present information, like I said, in that central data hub is stored, so it allows us to have a holistic overview of that individual's case and can help us to provide better services for the citizens of the Commonwealth. Again, that's just some general benefits of the system. We're going to start breaking down, though, each of the reports associated with the incident management module. So if we go to our next slide, we're going to see here that there are 3 reports that, again, are associated with you as a case manager and that you are responsible for. So as you can see here, we have those 3 there: the initial incident report, risk mitigation investigation report, and that case manager fact-finding report. So I'm going to break down each of these at a high level, and like I said, in the later modules, we'll get into more detail about them. But the initial incident report can be completed by direct service providers, direct service provider supervisors, or case managers. So those are the 3 main user groups that are going to be completing these reports. And really what it is it's the initial incident report, so it collects the base details of the event. So that includes the date, time, notified parties, category of the incident, as well as any supporting documents. So it's getting that base layer of information about the incident. The follow-up report to that is the risk mitigation and investigation report. Now this report can only be conducted by either a direct service provider supervisor or case manager. And really what this allows you as case managers and supervisors to do is re-verify previous findings as well as report any additional details. So those are the first 2 reports. The third, the case manager fact-finding report, this is specific to you as a case manager. And really what it's allowing you to do is to add additional details that you gathered from interviews that you've conducted with other witnesses. So again, I just want to point out that those 3 reports that you have access to, the initial incident report, risk mitigation investigation report, and that case manager fact-finding report. Now there is a 4th report in the incident management module, and you'll notice that at the very bottom of your screen, if you're following along, there's a little asterisk. I'm going to go ahead and read that for you. It reads, case managers do not have access to the CHFS fact-finding report. Now the CHFS fact-finding report, that is the 4th report in the incident management module. Now that report is reserved solely for internal reviewers and captures interviewee details. So again, you have access to the initial incident report, risk mitigation investigation report, and case manager fact-finding report, but you do not have access to conduct that CHFS fact-finding report. And that's something that I would take note of, something that might come up a little bit later on. All right, so again, that's our high-level overview of each of these reports. We'll go ahead and move to our next slide. So this brings us to knowledge check number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and read this and then bring up the polling question. So what does MWMA stand for? Is it A, Medicaid Waiver Management Administration, B, Medicaid Waiver Management Application, C, Medical Waiver Application? So again, read through those, be careful. Again, they can be a little tricky. And please refrain from posting your answers in the chat, and I'll bring up the polling question right now. So again, that should be there. I see some people posting in the chat. Please let's refrain from doing that. All right, we'll go ahead and give it about 10 more seconds. If you haven't answered yet, please do. Okay. So at this point, we'll go ahead and end our polling, and we'll share the correct answer. So again, looks like the majority of us got this right. Again, I appreciate everyone participating. And the correct answer is B, the Medicaid waiver management application. So again, thanks everyone. We'll go ahead, we'll stop sharing our results, and we'll move to our next question. So our next question is, case managers have access to all the following reports in MWMA, except for A, the case manager fact-finding report, B, the initial incident report, C, risk mitigation investigation report, or D, the CHFS fact-finding report. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that polling question. And like we did, we'll give you about a minute to answer. All right, we'll give it about 10 more seconds so everyone can get a chance to vote. And we'll end our polling questions right now. So end polling, we'll bring up our correct answer, as well as share our results. And that correct answer is D, the CHFS fact-finding report. So good job on that, everyone, and appreciate everyone following along. We'll go ahead and stop share results, and we'll move on to our next slide. All right, Module 2 is our initial incident report. So like I promised, we're going to break down each of these reports in greater detail. So this is where we're going to get started with that. So as we can see right here, our objectives are first and foremost to identify when you as a case manager would submit that initial incident report, as well as how to understand how to create and complete an initial incident report in the system. So we'll go through that slide by slide. Okay, so again, the initial incident report should be started anytime an event which occurs that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choice of a waiver participant. So I just want to stress that. You can see it's in that top section where it says incident report. Case manager should always start an incident report anytime an event which occurs that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choice of a waiver participant. Again, that's something I want to stress. It might pop up a little bit later on, so I might take note of it. In terms of how we access this report in the system, it's through the incident management module, and that is accessed through the individual summary screen. In terms of what case managers can and cannot do, so you as a case manager can initiate initial incident report in MWMA. However, you cannot view and you can also view incident reports for individuals from who are linked, but you cannot view incident reports for an individual you're not linked to. So a couple little caveats there. You can view incidents for an individual for whom you're linked to, but you cannot view an incident for an individual for whom you're not linked. Just something to call out there. But we'll go ahead and move to our next slide. And what we're about to do is bring up a quick little video that we've put together on incident reporting for you as a case manager. It'll kind of give you an overview of that process. So we're going to go ahead and play that. And then when we're done with that, we'll come back and we'll talk through it.
Hello. Welcome to the Incident Management module in the Medicaid Waiver Management Application, also known as MWMA. In this video, you will learn about reporting an initial incident and the risk mitigation and investigation report. Now let's get started. All incidents reported in MWMA start as an initial incident report. As a case manager, you should start an initial incident report anytime you witness or discover an event that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choice of a participant. There are two types of incident categories in MWMA: critical incidents and non-critical incidents. Critical incidents are serious in nature and pose immediate risk to the health, safety, or welfare of the waiver participant or others. Non-critical incidents are minor in nature and do not create a serious consequence or risk for waiver participants. To report an incident, perform a search for the individual using Quick Search. Then, select the appropriate individual from the list of returned search results and confirm the identity of the individual on the individual summary screen. On the individual summary screen, click the Incident Management tab. The incident summary screen displays, and you should click Create New Incident to begin the initial incident report. When completing the incident report, first verify the individual's information on the individual information screen. If a provider was involved in the incident, use the Reporting Provider Information screen to select the appropriate name from the provider drop-down list. The Incident Details screen captures details such as the location, address, and information pertaining to events happening before, during, and after the incident. The Notification screen captures the date and time each party was notified of the incident. Upon capturing all available incident details, you are navigated to the Incident Category screen, where the appropriate category should be selected. Based on the category selected, the appropriate subcategory screens are queued for you to complete. After completing all necessary subcategory screens, you are navigated to the Documents and Additional Comments screen, where all available and related documents are uploaded and comments are provided. To complete the initial incident report, click Submit. Upon completing the initial incident report, you will receive a Risk Mitigation and Investigation Report task on your task dashboard. Click Start on the task to begin. For more information on the Risk Mitigation and Investigation Report, please reference the Risk Mitigation and Investigation Report video. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. On behalf of the entire MWMA team, thank you for all that you do for Kentucky's 1915C waiver participants. We are excited to see the impact that your contributions have on the Commonwealth.
All right, so again, that was our incident reporting overview video. We will be sending out that video at a later time, so just please keep in mind that anything we go over today, you will have access to as well in terms of the presentation and the videos that we're showing. So keep that in mind that you'll have that to review at a later date. So we'll go ahead and move to our next slide. And what we're going to do now is kind of go over how we navigate this system. So in order to create an initial incident report, we're always going to start from our home screen. As you can see, that's what we have listed up on the screen right here. Again, this is the home screen for MWMA. What we're going to go ahead and do first is go ahead and click Quick Search. So we're going to click Quick Search, and that will bring us to our next screen, which is the Search Individual screen. And we want to find the individual for who we're going to create that initial incident report. Right now, we are looking at that Search Individual screen. The first thing we want to do is make sure that we've gone ahead and we've clicked this Search Individual button in the top left-hand corner, right? Because this will allow us to search by different criteria for that individual. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this box in blue. It's also highlighted in red. But again, this is all the different search criteria we can use to find that individual. So we could use the identifier type drop-down on the left-hand side. That's one of our options. We can select from there Medicaid ID. We can search by individual number. And then we can come over here to the identifier value, which is on the right-hand side, enter in that value and click search. What we could also do is come and search by first and last name. So you can see for us, that's what we did. We searched by first and last name. And then we would go ahead and we would click search. And this brings us, again, we're still on the search individual screen, but we have some search results listed at the very bottom of the screen. And what we want to do is make sure that we are looking at the correct individual. So we have some different identifying criteria that we can use to do that. We have the individual number, as well as individual name. We also have listed there the date of birth and social security number, as well as the waiver case number, Medicaid case number, and Medicaid ID number. Something else to point out is that, right, we have all that great information listed there, but once we found this correct individual, we verified them through that identifying criteria, we can go ahead and we can click on that individual name. It's that green name listed there, and that'll bring us to our next screen. So right now we are looking at the individual summary screen, and before we go ahead and start creating this initial incident report for this individual, we want to make sure again that it is the correct individual. So we're going to go ahead and look at the individual name. We can look at the Medicaid number, reported social security number, and date of birth. Again, right now for our training purposes, we've obscured some of that data, but at Go Live, you'll be able to see that information in the system. We can also see too, we have their waiver programs listed right here at the very bottom of the screen. Again, all associated waiver programs will be listed there. And then something I want to point out is this case action box on the right-hand side. Now this is pretty useful. We're going to break it down in detail. But in the case action box, you can click on the View Documents button, View Plans of Care, Assessment History, Accompanying Data and Documents, Message Center, View Task, and then that last button there at the very bottom, that's what we're going to focus on right now. That's that Incident Management button. So that'll take us to the Incident Management module in MWMA. And that's what we're going to click on to go ahead and start moving towards creating that initial incident report. So let's go ahead and click that button and pretend like we're doing that. And that's going to take us to our individual incident summary screen. So please everyone take note. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in blue, but that individual incident summary screen, that is where you are creating a new incident. That is the screen in which you will create that new incident. So please take note that the individual incident summary screen is where you create that new incident. It may come up a little bit later on. Something else I want to point out is that all of the incidents related to this individual are listed on the screen, right? We can see in the box I just highlighted in blue, we have an individual, we have an incident ID related to each incident that's been reported for this individual. So there's a green hyperlink there that you can click on. It also shows us the classification as well as the incident itself. So was it non-critical? Was it behavior? All that information is listed, as well as the discovery date and status. So whether or not it's in progress, whether or not it's closed, all that information is listed there. But again, we are here to create a new incident, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and click this Create New Incident on the bottom right-hand side of our individual incident summary screen. That'll take us to our next screen, which is again that individual information screen. This is the first screen in our initial incident report. So again, we're going to view that information, make sure it's the correct individual, and then we would go ahead and we would click Next. This brings us to our next screen, which is the Reporting Provider Information screen. So I want to call out something real quick that you can see at the top here. You have the reporting provider details. It'll show you the provider number, physical address. Again, that data is obscured right now, but it will be listed in the system at Go Live, so you'll be able to see that. But next I want to call out is our first mandatory field here, and that is, did you witness the incident? So you can go ahead and notify whether or not you were the one who witnessed it. So you can answer yes or no there to make that determination. Below that, we have an Add Witness button. I'm going to go ahead and call that out with a blue call out box. It's step number 12. So in order to add another witness, you would click Add Witness and provide that information about that individual. Something to point out is that you can add multiple witnesses, and we encourage you to do so, right? We want to make sure that we're providing as much information as possible. Next field that we're going to talk about is step 13 here, which is the checkbox next to, is the responsible provider the same as the reporting provider? So if that were the case, you'd go ahead and select that checkbox. But we also have we have the provider dropdown where you can go ahead and select the provider from that dropdown. Now, once all of these fields are filled out, we could go ahead and we could click Next. Now, our next screen is our incident detail screen. So this is really broken into two sections, and that's how I'm going to go over this with you today. The first section goes over location details of the incident, and then the second section goes over the actual details of what kind of occurred during that incident. So I'll go ahead and highlight our first section, which is dedicated to the location of the incident. in blue right now in a blue call-out box, and then we'll break this down field by field. The first field on this incident detail screen is the location field. So again, you can see this highlighted in the red text box, and I'll also go ahead and highlight with a blue one too. So from that drop down, you select day program, you select any of the pre-populated options that seemed appropriate. But if none of the pre-populated options seemed appropriate, you could go ahead and you could select other. In the field below, if other, specify is a freeform text box that populates. You'd go ahead and answer that, input where you think this actually occurred, and then below that you could input the address line. So you can input the physical address of the incident. Then you're required to enter in the city, the state, the zip code, and the county as well. So again, that is our first section of the incident detail screen, kind of dedicated to the location of the incident itself. Next, we'll talk about our second section here, which is going over incident details, what actually occurred. So our first mandatory field here in this section, and I'll go ahead and highlight it in blue as well, is what happened immediately before the incident. So go ahead in that what happened immediately before the incident text box and enter in some information there. Again, you have 8,000 character limit there, so you can provide quite a bit of information. Once you've done that, you go ahead and go to the describe the incident that took place. And that is the second mandatory field. Make sure to fill out that information and then move to your third question here, which is non-mandatory, but still highly encouraged to fill out. And that is what happened immediately after the incident. So you're kind of giving a holistic overview as to kind of what occurred during this incident. So whoever looks at this next has a clear picture of the event. Now, once we have all of these fields filled out, we can go ahead and we can click next. That'll take us to our notification screen. So the notification screen allows you to input the date and time in which each party was notified. So as you can see here, there's quite a few different options we have. We have the time or date and time law enforcement was notified, state guardian was notified, private guardian, family member was notified, quite a few options. So you would read through this, make sure that you're inputting the date and time each party was notified. And as you can see here, we did for ours, we did the date and time family member was notified. So we input the date and time, and then what we would do after that is we would go ahead and input as well the notification method, whether it was via phone, email, or fax. And we could also go ahead and input the contact name from the notified entity. So all that information could be input there. Now let's say, for instance, that no one was needed to be notified, right? So no one was notified, there was no reason to. There is a way to determine that, make that determination as well. And that is on the bottom left-hand corner where it says, no notifications were required. So in that box, you go ahead and check that, again, if no one was notified. So once we have all the information filled out on the screen, we could go ahead and we could click next. And that brings us to our incident category screen. So like I did with the incident detail screen, I'm going to break this into two sections. So the first section kind of goes over the date and time that the incident was witnessed. And the second section goes over the actual category of the incident itself. So I'll go ahead and go kind of notify where that first section is. So you can see it's in that blue call box right there that I just put on your screen. But first field that we'd want to make sure we filled out is the date and time witnessed or discovered, right? So that is the first field. We'd go ahead and enter in the date and time the incident was witnessed or discovered. The second field is date and time of incident approximated. So are you approximating the date and time? Answer yes or no there. Third field is what was the role of the individual in the incident? So go ahead and make that determination, whether the alleged victim, the alleged perpetrator. Again, make that determination there. And then our fourth mandatory field is level of supervision at the time of the incident. So was it line of sight? Was it shoulder to shoulder? Again, go ahead and input that information. So that's our first section of the incident category screen. Our second section is the incident category itself that we're going to go ahead and select. Now, as you can see in that blue call-out box that I just put on the screen, we have quite a few different categories we can select from. We could select behavior, confidentiality breach, medication, public health concerns, suspected abuse. Any of those could be selected. You can read through those, make the proper selection, and what you're going to do is click the checkbox next to the one that you'd like to select, and then input the date and time as well. Now, something to call out here, and you'll see there's a please note at the very bottom of your screen, is that depending on the category selected on the screen, it is going to trigger up specific fields and follow-up questions on the incident subcategory screens and incident subcategory question screen. So again, depending on what you select here, it's going to dictate what shows up on the following screen. So as you're going through this on your daily routine and you're inputting different initial incident reports, if the screens don't always look the same on the incident subcategory and incident subcategory question screens, again, don't worry, because again, it is dependent upon what you select on that incident category screen. Just something to take note of. So after we've gone ahead and input our information, we'd go ahead and we would click Next. Now this brings us to our incident subcategories screen. So like I said, this is dependent upon what you input on the incident category screen. So we input illness and injury, and below that we have some pre-populated subcategories that we could select from, right? We have fall, we have history of seizures, seizure activity without a diagnosis, seizure activity beyond individual protocol. So we could select one of those pre-populated options as our incident subcategory, or what we could do is we could go ahead up here where it says type, and in that free-form text box, input what type of actual incident subcategory this was. Now, once we've made our selections or typed out what the incident subcategory is, we could go ahead and we could click Next. This brings us to our incident subcategory questions. So as you can see here, we have our illness and injury. That is our category at the top. And there's a few subcategory questions about that. So first mandatory field is, illness and injury was either major or minor. So make that determination. And then below that, we have a non-mandatory field, medical or psychiatric. So make that determination as well, if you see fit. And then we have our subcategory, which was fall, right? So we have some additional questions about that. Was the fall witnessed, yes or no? So you can make that determination. And then we have a mandatory field, fall was major or minor. So go ahead and make that determination there. We have a non-mandatory field, crisis plan followed. You could select yes or no. And then our last field here, again, is non-mandatory, but in terms of trying to give a holistic overview of what actually occurred and where it occurred, we have our target body area. So we could go ahead and select where this incident actually occurred on the body. Was it on the arm, the face, the head, chest, hand, neck? Make that determination there just to give that holistic overview. Once we filled out all this information, we could go ahead and we could click Next. And that's going to bring us to the last screen in the initial incident report, and that is the document upload screen. Now, something I would like to point out, something we get a lot of questions about, do I have to upload a document? And no, you don't necessarily have to. It's not mandatory to upload a document here, but it's highly encouraged to provide and upload any supporting documentation that is relevant to that incident, right? Like I said before, and I've harped on this quite a bit, we want to give that holistic overview. So if you have any supporting documentation, what you're going to do is you're going to click this little browse hyperlink, and that will allow you to select the document from your desktop. And once you've done that, you're going to come over and you're going to classify the document by using that document type dropdown, provide any comments about the document, and then click attach. Now, upon clicking attach, what's going to happen is you are going to see that document populate up here in the document summary section. So again, it'll show the document type, the date, and comments related to that uploaded document. Again, types of documents you can upload, really anything pertaining to the case, but list of current medications, staff notes, coroner's report, or any incident supporting document can be uploaded here. If you'd like to upload additional documents, you can go ahead and click on attach another document, and then you would just repeat that process. Now, once we've uploaded all of our documents, what we can do is we can go ahead and we can click submit. And that will bring us to the end of our initial incident report. So what we will do next is we will go over our next set of knowledge check questions. So I'm going to read through it and then I'll bring it up in the polling and I'll give you all about a minute to answer. So true or false, an initial incident report should be started any time you witness or discover an event which occurs that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choices of a participant. So I'll go ahead and bring up that polling question. Like we did before, we'll give you about a minute to answer. So we're at about 80% of everyone's voted. Let's give it 10 more seconds. If you haven't voted yet, please do so. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll end our polling. We'll bring up our correct answer. We're going to share our results as well. So it looks like, again, congratulations everyone, 100% of you guys got that correct. So again, you should always make that initial incident report anytime you witness an event which occurs that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choices of participants. So again, congratulations, awesome job everyone. I'll stop sharing results and we'll move to our next question. So our next question is, on what screen is a new initial incident report created? Is it A, the individual incident summary, B, individual summary, C, individual information screen, or B, provider information screen? So I'll go ahead and bring up that polling question. Like I said before, give you about a minute to answer. So we're at about 77%. Again, let's try and get that up to 90 if we can. So I'll give it about 10 more seconds. All right, what we're going to do is go ahead and end our polling. And we'll bring up that correct answer. So we'll share our results. And the correct answer is A, the individual incident summary screen. So again, great job, everyone. Stop sharing results and we'll move to our next slide. So next we are going to jump into module 3, which is our risk mitigation and investigation report. So we move to our next slide, we'll see what our objectives are. And similar to our other modules, we want to identify when to submit a risk mitigation investigation report. There's also understand how to start and complete that risk mitigation investigation report in MWMA. So we're going to go over each and every one of those slides and screens associated with it. We can move to our next slide. But before we do that, we have another quick video that we want to show you. So I'll go ahead and get that brought up. When we get back, we'll talk through this in greater detail.
Hello, welcome to Incident Reporting in the Medicaid Waiver Management Application, also known as MWMA. In this video, you will learn how to complete a risk mitigation and investigation report. Let's get started. All incidents reported in MWMA start as an initial incident report. As a case manager, you should start an initial incident report anytime an event occurs that impacts the health, safety, welfare, or lifestyle choice of a participant. To learn more about how to complete an initial incident report, please watch the Case Manager Incident Reporting video. Upon completing the initial incident report, you are required to complete a risk mitigation and investigation report. The risk mitigation and investigation report is a follow-up report that allows you to input additional details and actions taken regarding the incident. After submitting the initial incident report, a risk mitigation and investigation report task is generated. To start the task, navigate to your task dashboard and click the appropriate task. The incident details screen contains information that was previously recorded during the initial incident report. You may add additional comments about the incident here. On the provider's actions taken screen, risk mitigation and investigation questions appear for you to answer. These questions ask additional details that were not captured in the initial incident report, such as the person's current status and the reason the incident occurred. After the risk mitigation and investigation findings are entered, click Next. The incident category screen is pre-populated based on inputs from the initial incident report. You may add comments to the incident category screen and then click Next. The incident subcategory screen asks questions specific to the incident category that was previously selected. The incident subcategory questions screen asks additional questions specific to the reported incident category. Finally, the document upload screen allows you to upload any additional documents that may be important, such as Medicaid administration records and staff notes. Additionally, comments can be added before clicking Submit to complete the risk mitigation and investigation reports. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. On behalf of the entire MWMA team, thank you for all that you do for Kentucky's 1915C waiver participants. We are excited to see the impact that your contributions have on the Commonwealth.
Alrighty, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump into the risk mitigation investigation report. Kind of give an overview of kind of what that is and when you should conduct it. So, again, that risk mitigation investigation report is a follow-up report to the initial incident report. And you as case managers complete the risk mitigation investigation report if you've conducted the initial incident report as well. So, when an initial incident report is completed, case managers will initiate the risk mitigation and investigation report via the task dashboard. So there's going to be a task listed there. Again, if you complete the initial incident report, you're going to complete the risk mitigation investigation report as well. Now, let's say, for instance, that a risk mitigation and investigation report is conducted by a direct service provider supervisor. Then you will receive a task for sign-off on that risk mitigation and investigation report. So, two different kind of routes there you can take. So if you complete the initial incident report, you're completing the risk mitigation investigation report. If someone else, such as a direct service provider supervisor, completes it, then you're going to receive a case manager sign-off task. And we'll show you what that looks like in the system. So what you can do is you can complete that risk mitigation investigation report. And what you cannot do is complete the case manager sign-off task unless the risk mitigation investigation report is completed by a direct service provider supervisor. So just something to call out and keep in mind. But at this point, we'll go ahead and move to our next slide. And we'll start walking through how to complete this task in the system. So first thing we're going to do is on our home dashboard, we are going to locate that risk mitigation investigation report task. So you can see right here, I'm highlighting it with a blue call-out box, that we have found our risk mitigation investigation report task. And we will go ahead and click Start on that task. Now, upon clicking Start on that risk mitigation and investigation report task, as you can see right here, we are brought to our incident summary screen. On that incident summary screen, we can see all reports associated with that incident. So we can see that we have our initial incident report. That report status is submitted. Then underneath that, we have our risk mitigation and investigation report. And that report status reads as awaiting initiation. So what we would do is we would come on over to the right-hand side here and we would click on that initiate hyperlink. Now, upon clicking that initiate hyperlink, we're brought to our next screen, which is the incident detail screen. So this is the first screen, again, in that risk mitigation and investigation report. So what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to review the information that was submitted. Again, we can see there's a couple fields here: what happened immediately before the incident, describe the incident that took place, and what happened immediately after the incident. Those are all populated based off information that was provided on the incident detail screen in the initial incident report. So you're going to review that information. If you have any comments about it, in this red call-out box over here, field that reads comments about incident, you can provide additional comments there. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and click Next. That's going to bring us to our actions taken screen. So again, some of this information is pre-populated from that initial incident report. I'll go ahead and call that out real quick with a blue call-out box, but it's at the very top of the screen. So date and time of discovery, date and time guardian was notified, time case manager was notified. Those are all pre-populated fields based off information from that initial incident report. So what you're going to do is review that, and then you're going to come down here to, was everyone notified by required deadlines? And make a determination as to yes or no. So answer yes or no to that field. In the case that you answer no to everyone who was notified by required deadlines, this field down here, if not, who was not notified and what was the reason, populates, and you would provide your answer there. Now after that, we have our follow-up findings section. We have a couple mandatory fields here. We have what is the person's current status. So you could choose one of those pre-populated options, such as stable with no serious changes noted, or seen by professional admitted to facility. But if none of those are fitting, you could go ahead and you could select other, which is at the bottom of that question. And you could go ahead and there will be a free-form text box that will populate, and you can provide additional information. And below that, we have why did the incident occur? And you like I said before, you can choose one of those pre-populated options. So one of those is failure to follow crisis support plan. Another is unable to determine. But if you're unhappy with any of those, you can go ahead and select other and then put your answer in one of those free-form text boxes. So that is the first half of our actions taken screen. At this point, we'll go to our next slide and show you the bottom half of that. So on the bottom half of our actions taken screen, we have a couple more mandatory fields. We have identify needed changes to prevent similar incidents. So again, this is a mandatory field, so go ahead and make that selection. If you don't like the pre-populated options, select other, and you can go ahead and put your answer in that free-form text box. Below that, we have how many times has this kind of incident happened in your agency or with another provider with this waiver participant in the past 3 months. So go ahead and enter that number of times this type of incident has happened in the past 3 months, and that's just kind of to track any trends that may be happening. Below that, we have what did you do to keep the waiver participant safe and well following the incident? So go ahead and input your answer in that text box. And then we have what are the investigating staff's recommendations for preventing future occurrences? So go ahead and make sure you have an answer there as well. Once you fill out all of those mandatory text boxes, you can go ahead and you can fill out the non-mandatory ones as well. Again, if they are non-mandatory, you don't have to fill them out, but we highly encourage it just because, again, we want to give that holistic overview of the incident. But once we have all of our information filled out, we can go ahead and we can click next. Again, this brings us to a familiar screen that we've seen before, but that is our incident category screen, right? So again, all this information is pre-populated, but you do have the opportunity to adjust as you see fit. So again, if you needed to maybe select another category, you could do that here. But we're going to review this information. On our end, it looks like everything seems appropriate. So we would go ahead and we would click next. And that will bring us again to our document upload screen, something we're familiar with at this point. And not a mandatory screen, you don't have to upload any documents here, but you can review what's already been uploaded. And if you wanted to, you could attach additional comments attach additional documents. You could follow that process that we outlined earlier. But for our purposes, it looks like everything is set. So we will go ahead and we will click submit. And that would bring us to the end of the risk mitigation investigation report if we were the ones conducting it. Now, like I said earlier, if a direct service provider supervisor completes that risk mitigation investigation report, you will receive a case manager sign-off task. So that's what we're going to go over right now, is what that screen looks like. So let's pretend that the direct service provider supervisor submitted that risk mitigation investigation report. We looked on our task dashboard. We saw that case manager sign-off task listed there. We click start, and we would be brought to the screen right here, the case manager sign-off screen. So on that case manager sign-off screen, it's very simple. After reviewing the information that's been provided by that direct service provider supervisor, you would either agree or disagree to sign off on that report. Now, let's say you agree to case manager sign-off. That's great, the incident is closed. But however, let's say you disagree. If you disagree to case manager sign-off, what's going to happen is a case manager fact-finding report is going to be triggered, and you will receive that task on your dashboard and you will have to conduct that case manager fact-finding report. So again, as you can see right here, we selected disagree with the case manager sign-off, so we would expect to see that task on our dashboard. Now below that we have our comments, so we could input any comments there, and once we're satisfied, we could go ahead and we could click next. And this is going to bring us to our next set of knowledge check questions. So I'll go ahead and get these brought up. Again, case managers can complete risk mitigation and investigation reports, true or false. So I'll go ahead and get that brought up for you right now. We'll give it about 10 more seconds to give everyone a chance to answer, and then we'll go ahead and end our polling. All right, we're going to go ahead and end polling, and then we'll bring up the correct answer as well as share our results. So again, the correct answer there is true, right? Case managers can complete the risk mitigation and investigation report. So I'll stop sharing results at this point, and we will move on to our next knowledge check question. So the next knowledge check question is, when should case managers complete a risk mitigation and investigation report? Is it A, after an internal reviewer conducts an initial incident report, B, after a direct service provider completes the initial incident report, C, when an internal reviewer asks them to, or D, after a case manager completes the initial incident report? So I'll bring up that question and give you all about a minute to answer. All right, so we'll give it about 5 more seconds. If you haven't voted, please do so. All right, and at this point, we're going to go ahead, end our polling, bring up the correct answer, and share our results. So again, the correct answer is D, after a case manager completes the initial incident report, right? So if you complete the initial incident report, you're going to complete the risk mitigation investigation report. Let's say a direct service provider supervisor completes the risk mitigation investigation report, then you would complete a task for case manager sign off. So just something to keep in mind, but we'll stop sharing results at this point and we'll move to our next slide. And we are going to go ahead and give you all a 10-minute break. So again, give everyone a chance to go ahead and stretch their legs. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to break for 10 minutes. So if everyone could please be back by 2:13. At 2:13, we'll jump into our case manager fact-finding report. Thanks. And we're going to go ahead and we are going to jump into our next module, which is module 4, the case manager fact-finding report. So on our next screen, we'll talk about our objectives here, but again, similar to our other modules, we want to know as a case manager when to submit that case manager fact-finding report. We also want to know how to begin and complete that report in the system. So we'll go ahead and move to our next slide. We'll give you an overview of that case manager fact-finding report, but again, it is the third report in the incident management module. It comes right after the risk mitigation and investigation report. And the case manager fact-finding report acts as a follow-up report and serves to gather additional information that CHFS internal reviewers can use to make a final determination, right? So in terms of how we access this report, so if you as a case manager disagree to sign off on the risk mitigation investigation report, the case manager fact-finding report task is created on your dashboard, right? So we touched on that earlier, but again, if you disagree to sign off on that risk mitigation investigation report, then you will receive a case manager fact-finding report task. So I just want to point that out. In terms of what you can do, you can complete a case manager fact-finding report, but you cannot conduct a case manager fact-finding report if you've completed both the initial incident report and the risk mitigation and investigation report. So just something to point out before we jump into our actual system navigation. Alrighty, so at this point we are looking at our home screen again. We've seen this quite a few times today, but I'm going to go ahead and annotate where the case manager fact-finding report task is, right? So we made it to our home screen. We're going to locate that task. So I've just done that with a blue call-out box, that case manager fact-finding report. And now we're going to go ahead and click start. So we click start on that task. And that brings us to the incident summary screen. So again, something that I would take note of, it might pop up later in one of our knowledge checks, but after clicking start on that task, we are navigated to the incident summary screen. So as you can see here, all the reports associated with that incident are listed. We have them in descending order. We have the incident or initial incident report, the risk mitigation and investigation report, and then we have that case manager fact-finding report. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to click initiate on that case manager fact-finding report. And that brings us to our case manager fact-finding screen. This is the first screen in this report. And we have a couple fields here. We have 3 fields that are all mandatory. And the first one is our findings text box. So you would go ahead and you would enter your findings in that text box, which is mandatory. You would then go ahead and you would enter in the outcomes, so whether you agree or disagree. And then enter, was the incident investigated, yes or no? So you're going to make sure all those mandatory fields are filled out. And then you could go ahead and you could click next. That brings us to our fact-finding screen. So here we can see we have 4 mandatory fields. We have the fact-finding type. So we could select site visit or we could select desk level. Below that we have date of fact-finding. So go ahead and enter that date in which that finding was conducted. Then we have location of fact-finding. So we could select day program, in-home, any of those options. And then we have the date and time of visiting location. So make sure you put that date and time. And then you could go ahead and you could click next. And that would bring us to the people interviewed screen. So as you can see here, I'm trying to get my drawings to disappear. We have the people interviewed section, which again is going to show us all the people that we've gone ahead and interviewed. I'm sorry, it seems like the annotations are stuck on our screen, so bear with me as we try and navigate through that. But again, on the people interviewed screen, you would see the people interviewed summary, where each individual you've interviewed is listed, give you the last name, the first name, as well as the date and time and whether or not they're the witness. Something I want to point out is that you can see here we have the add witness button. It's in green right there. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, and there we go. Got those to disappear. So the add witness button shows right there. If we wanted to add additional witnesses to the screen or additional people interviewed, we could do is go ahead and click that. And then we would enter the first name, the last name, and then if there's a title associated with that individual, make sure that's entered as well, even though it's non-mandatory. And then we could enter in the date and time that the individual was again interviewed, interview type, whether or not it was in person or over the phone, make a determination as to whether or not they're the witness, so answer yes or no to witness. And then one more mandatory field, suspended or reprimanded, answer yes or no. And below that, we have a non-mandatory field, resigned or terminated, so you could select yes or no there. And once all that information is filled out, we would go ahead and we would click Save. Alrighty, so as you can see here, and once we click Save, that information would populate up here in the People Interviewed Summary section. And we could repeat this process as many individuals as we need. And then we could go ahead and we could click Next. Okay. This brings us to our evidence screen. So again, this is the fourth screen in our case manager fact find report. So there's three fields here. The first one is how was the scene secured? So make sure you're filling that out. Second is what evidence was collected. And then third is if collected, how was it collected? So again, it gives a holistic overview of not only what evidence was collected, but the procedure that was followed, right? So whoever comes and looks at this after you can see, you kind of have a clear picture of the process that was taken and made sure that it was done correctly. All right. After we fill out those screens, we could click Save and Exit, and that would allow us to come back to this at a later time. Or we could click Next, which is on the bottom right-hand side, and that would allow us to continue through our process. And that brings us to the last screen here in the Case Manager Fact Find Report, and that is the document upload screen, something we're quite familiar with at this point. But again, if we wanted to go ahead and upload any supporting documents, we can do that here. Again, what we would do is click that Browse Hyperlink, brings us to our desktop where we can select the appropriate document, classify that document using the document type dropdown, enter any comments pertaining to it, and then we could click Attach. Again, that would show right here in the document summary section. And after that, what we could do is we could go ahead and we could click Submit. And once we click Submit, that Case Manager Fact Find Report is completed. So again, congratulations, you just made it through the Case Manager Fact Find Report. Alrighty. So at this point, we do have a few more knowledge check questions. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this and then bring it up on your screen. But after clicking the Start link on the MWMA Dashboard Task menu for the Case Manager Fact Find Report, you will be directed to the A, Individual Summary screen, B, Incident Summary screen, C, Case Manager Fact Finding screen, or D, the Incident Detail screen. So I'll go ahead and bring up that polling question. And again, we're going to give you about a minute to answer that, so take your time. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. So let's make sure if you haven't voted yet, please do so. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll end polling. And we're going to share our results as well as bring up the correct answer. And that correct answer is B, Incident Summary screen. So it looks like quite a few of us got that right. Great, we'll go ahead and stop sharing results at this point, and we'll bring up our next question. So our next question is, which screen is not a part of the case manager fact-finding report module? Is it A, providers interviewed, B, evidence, C, document upload, or D, fact-finding type? So I'll go ahead and I'll bring up that polling question right now. We'll give it about 10 more seconds, so if you haven't voted yet, please do. We'll go ahead, we'll end our polling, and we will share our results. And the correct answer is providers interviewed. So again, looks like we split on that, but again, providers interviewed, it is the people interviewed screen. So we'll stop sharing results and we will move to our next question. And our next question is, and this is the last question, so again, let's see if we can get 100% participation on this, again, finish strong. But when is the case manager fact-finding report conducted? Is it A, following the initial incident report, B, concurrent with the CHFS fact-finding report, C, preceding the case manager sign-off task, or D, after the risk mitigation and investigation report? So again, I'm going to go ahead and launch that polling question, and let's shoot to have everybody participate in this polling question if we can. Give it about 10 more seconds. Again, we're at 72% of everyone participating, so let's get everyone to answer if we can. All right, we'll go ahead and end our polling. We'll bring up the correct answers. We'll share our results. And the correct answer is, again, it is after the risk mitigation and investigation report. So D is the correct answer. Looks like a large majority of us got that correct. So again, thank you for following along. That's the last of our knowledge check questions. So we'll go ahead and we will transition to our next slide. And now we're going to go ahead and get started with our question and answer session. Like I said before, this will be led by Alicia Clark. She is our subject matter expert. So we're happy to have her on the line and thankful as well. So at this point, I will go ahead and I will hand it over to Alicia if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alicia Clark, and I am the Assistant Director of the Division of Community Alternatives that's housed in Medicaid. And I work under the direction of Pam Smith, our Director, and I will be here answering your questions today. And if you ask me something that I can't answer, I'll definitely make sure that we get the answer and put in the FAQ document that we will be releasing to everybody. And make sure if you are asking questions, put them in that Q&A function so that they pop up for me and that I can see those so we can make sure that everybody gets their questions answered appropriately. The first question is, if a client's diagnosed with COVID-19, is this considered an incident? Then do we add it to MWMA? So if I'm not mistaken, you should be reporting those incidents today. Nothing's changing with what we're reporting. It's just being where it's being reported from or to, kind of. So we're not doing it on paper anymore. We are transitioning everything to electronic formats, and so that we can pull data. When you send stuff by PDF documents, everything's manual and you can't gather good data from that. So by everything being in the system, it allows us to pull data and to use this for quality purposes as we move forward. I think we're at a good time that I can talk about the letter that was sent out on September the 11th. There was our memo. The memo that was sent out discusses two important pieces and subjects for our 1915C waivers. The first one is being critical incidents just incidents in general, should I say. And we understand that, case managers have been using MWMA for a while. You all there were some hurdles there, at times, but we've enhanced the system, and I think it's pretty user-friendly. I know we've received lots of good feedback on it, and we do continue to take comments and to look at ways that we can continue to enhance it in the future. But our DSPs are just now going to be getting into the system as of October the 3rd. So it's going to take a little bit of transition time for them. And in understanding that, we want them to get in to use the system to start feeling comfortable with it. So we are requiring that incident reports will be mandatory beginning on December the 1st. So that's our cutoff date. You will not be able to submit paper reports after December the 1st. You must input everything into MWMA electronically. The other subject was service notes. Some people say, well, what are service notes? Well, it's the notes that are required for documentation that is in each of the regulations for the waivers. It could be different based on the service that you are providing, and also quite frankly, not all of our waivers are consistent with what is required to be documented. So please make sure that you are going and looking at those regulations, and to ensure, it helps you all, because we have to audit you. CMS audits us, we have to audit you, and that will help you in to help not to have recoupments as we do our auditing. But because we heard some comments from providers, and we took those comments back and really talked internally and wanted to make a good decision. People were concerned with duplication of notes. We have some people, obviously there's the option for MWMA if you don't have any electronic system or way to capture your notes. So we have MWMA, we have EVV. If you're not familiar with that, I want you to look on our website. We have a lot of information about EVV. It's called Electronic Visit Verification. This is for in-home services. So like if somebody's going in providing, say, CLS or maybe respite. There are several, we've got a bunch of information, like I said, on our website. I'm not the one that's spearheading that. I've been involved, but that's kind of a different subject. But we have EVV, and that's a federal mandate. So if we don't have that in the system, it affects our funding for our 1915C waivers, which would not be a good thing. We do not need any more decreased funding. If anything, we need more money. So we have that system where people are going to have to document. Some people are already using EHRs of their own that possibly are linked to our MMIS, our billing system. And then we have MWMA. So we put a lot of thought into this and decided that what was best, although it is in regulation, that it is a requirement, that we're not going to hold you to that. We're going to delay those service notes for right now. We're internally discussing right now, what is our path forward? What's the best thing that we can do? And we're, tossing around ideas. One of those is, are we able to integrate our EVV systems, our EHRs with MWMA? So we're looking at that. Once a decision is made, I'll be sure to, let our providers know on how we're going to be moving forward. But right now, there is not a decision. Somebody has asked, if you did not witness the incident and the family does not provide the information, do you answer all the questions based on the information from the CHFS report? When you're talking to the family, you really want to gather as much information as possible. If you did not witness it, you need to fill it out accurately and very factually. As much information as you can gather, that's what you need to do. But please, I always tell everybody, paint a picture, because that really, I was always taught that if you didn't chart it, you didn't do it. And it's always good to ask those, kind of, I don't want to say probing questions, but you don't want to ask yes or no questions. When you're really investigating and trying to figure out what's going on, you ask open-ended questions to gain as much information as possible. But you definitely fill that report out with factual information, or with, if somebody tells you something, you can put those in quotes. But just if you didn't witness it, then you are going to mark that you did not witness it. And it's possible that it's just a statement from the participant and that there are no witnesses. But if there's witnesses, we need to capture as much information as possible within our incidents. One of the questions is, will we know if CHFS has picked up an incident for investigation, or if they did, whether it was substantiated or not? There will probably be some conversations with you all there's a CHFS fact-finding report. It's where we have to do kind of our own investigation. So you might be involved, as we might have to call you, have maybe a phone interview. It could be an on-site interview. It could be just done by, desktop as well and over the phone. In order for us to fill out our stuff. But more than likely, you will know that we're looking at it because we're going to have some follow-up questions. So the next question is, I've heard that others cannot see case manager notes in MWMA because we entered them in the case management under case note. However, they appear in the view document section. So if this is true, if they can view other documents, won't they see our case management summaries as well? If you go in, and my understanding is, and I don't think that maybe some directions were as clear from maybe staff as possibly other staff. But if you go in under just view documents and you upload those documents, they can see those. If you go in under the case or the notes section and you type in your notes, or you upload your document there under the case notes section, they cannot see those. You'll be able to see those. Our internal CHFS staff can see those, but the DSP providers cannot. Now, if you go into view documents and just upload everything that way, then it is possible that they can see. So it's very, very important to use the modules in which they were designed for. And just this isn't a question that's come up yet, but I want to go ahead and put this out there as well. And I know you all are case managers. Obviously, you're going to have access to everything because you're kind of the gatekeeper. You're looking at the whole picture with what's going on with an individual and their case. So you need access to everything. One of the questions from our direct service provider trainings was, can other people see what I submit for incidents? And it was kind of posed as, I don't want animosity to be between me and a provider, or I don't want for them to see that I'm kind of tattletelling on them. So just to let you all know, and I'm going to use these two as just totally as an example, but if you have a participant that's in residential and they also go to day training, if the residential provider submits a critical incident on the day training provider, the day training provider cannot see that. That information is going to be able to be viewed by the person and the agency that's submitting the incident and the case managers. Anything that you all do, when you all do your fact-finding report, they cannot see that. They also, if you do an initial incident and a risk mitigation, they cannot see that, because we understand that sometimes, it's very important to have, obviously, I'm going to say it's very important to have open communication with our providers. But sometimes when we document, you want to ensure that possibly, that somebody doesn't just pick it up without knowing and take it the wrong way or something like that. So just make sure that you're using modules, as they were designed and intended for. The next question is, currently case managers are only using MWMA. Does this mean that other providers who witness an incident will be able to complete the incident report in MWMA, or will all those reports come to the case manager and it's our responsibility to enter? No, it's, the responsibility is still the same as it was previously. We're really just moving the submission from a paper process to an electronic process. So you're still going with your initial incidents and everything. You still need to submit those as based on the times within the documentation that was in the training that occurred, I think it was last September or so. I am looking at those FAQ documents at the training guide. My plan is to update that to reflect submitting incidents electronically. So again, everybody who provides a 1915C waiver service is supposed to have access to the participants that they serve. Another question is, if a case manager disagrees with an investigation completed by another agency or DSPS, will the DSPS get a notification that the case manager disagreed? And I'm sorry, this might have already been in the open chat before I kind of talked about that a while ago, but I'll just kind of repeat it. They cannot see the information that you are submitting. So if you submit the incident report and the risk mitigation investigation report, the DSPs cannot see that. They also don't see your case manager fact-finding report. Somebody says that they're employed as a case manager and a DSP supervisor. Will she, or I shouldn't say she, will this person be able to input criticals for all these patients? Yes, you will. You'll need to go through whether you're working as a case manager or a direct service supervisor, and how you're going to, because the roles are a little bit differently. So you'll need to go through that path in order to do that for those specific individuals. And this is all incidents. So whether it's critical or non-critical, all incidents will actually go into MWMA. And just another piece of information that I don't think has been asked, and if it has, I will skip over it later. But somebody asked, well, what if my participant has like 3 falls in a 90-day period? Will it tell me that I need to submit a critical incident? No, it's not going to do that. The system is designed to be able to pick up that and recognize that it's the third incident within the same category, and will actually go ahead and mark that as a critical in the system. The next question is there a deadline to complete the risk mitigation and investigation report? Once you submit that initial incident, then what happens is that risk mitigation and investigation task is then created, and you will have 7 days for a critical incident to complete it. If it's a non-critical incident, you will have 10 days. The next question is there a time frame as of when a case manager has to sign off on the incident report once it has appeared on their dashboard? That should also be a 7-day time frame as well. The next question is, I process the incident reports for our agency and enter them on an HRST, and since HRST and MWMA are connected, is it still necessary to add incidents to the HRST? That is something that you will have to follow up with BHDID on, because that is separate from the MWMA, but all incident reports will need to come through electronically to MWMA. The next question is, BHDID no longer needs to be emailed an incident report if it was entered into MWMA, correct? Question mark. Yes, that is correct. We are moving, as you all are moving to electronic systems, we are as well, and we will be reviewing these incidents in MWMA ourselves, whether the operating agency, whether that's DMS, BDID, or DAIL. And we have about 14 minutes left. What I will do right now, there are no open questions in our Q&A here. So I am going, oh, and just, I forgot to tell you this a while ago too, but Cheryl was very gracious and added the link to that memo that went out on September the 11th. And so if you haven't seen that, or if you're not familiar with it, or if you kind of filed it or whatever you did, please grab that link out of there, bring that up, print it out so you have it, and make yourself familiar with that. Another question has come in that says, will MWMA end up being an electronic chart and do away with paper charts? You know, that's kind of a business decision. Some businesses are still wanting paper to have their own binders, their own charts within their facilities. But this is, you know, kind of almost like a one-stop shop. I mean, your PAs are in here, your plans of care, you'll be able to get to. But again, I'm not going to tell you that your agency does not want you to print things out and put them in a chart, because I know some agencies do. They want that. Just to make everyone kind of give a little bit more background, or ensure that it's clear, our PDS employees, should they have access to MWMA? PDS employees are not employed by you. They are employed by a participant. So they do not need access to MWMA. Right now, as a case manager, your participants are in PDS. You know, they're reporting incidents to you. You are filing those. PDS employees should not have access to MWMA. Let's see. I don't know. I think this is my third Q&A today. So if I am repeating this, y'all can just tell me to hush and I will understand. We have FAQs coming out. We have the micro videos, the PowerPoints. We will be putting all of this on our website. And when that is complete, Kelly, our amazing communications specialist, she'll send out those emails on those listservs. We will give you all the links to those and to make sure you have that. Once those the FAQs, but then I'm going to look at the training. We've already got some work being done on that, but I need to go back through it. We're going to send out everything. But you might get a couple different emails, but we want you to have it as soon as it's out there and available. There are QRGs. I know that you all should have access to TRIS. If you don't, we need to get you access to TRIS. That is a hub is what I call it, or whatever, a little platform where we keep a lot of quick reference guides. I use it for internal training. I encourage you all, I've pointed people back and shared those QRGs with them because it's very, very helpful to everybody that uses MWMA. So we have those out there. We're getting the direct service providers access. I think we posted 5 or 6 new QRGs for the direct service providers the other day. Another question that has come in, I have 10 business days for the follow-up investigation, not 5 days. So right now, when it goes electronic, you submit that incident report, and then it's going to be 10 calendar days for a critical incident, for a non-critical incident, and 7 calendar days for a critical incident when it is in MWMA and electronic. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything else that's kind of jumping out to me right now. But again, I know that we have about 8 minutes left. I don't see anything else posted, so I am going to turn it back over to our Deloitte team. But before I do that, again, we will have those FAQs out there for you all. We're always here to answer questions, and as we move forward, we might have to add some different questions and answers for you all, and we can do that. That's not a problem. But first and foremost, I appreciate everybody attending the training as we move forward through these exciting and scary times as we're making changes. I appreciate everything that you all have done for our participants during COVID. I know that it really changed the way that we all do business and how we've just interacted. And I think that's really hard. I know it is for me. And so I can only imagine what it is for our participants as well. But I appreciate you all because you all are on the front lines trying to assure that they're getting, services, maybe it be meals, maybe behaviors changed and we had to, work through some of those issues. You've changed plans. And I just, on behalf of the department, I want to tell you all how much we appreciate everything that you do for our participants. And with saying that, I will turn it back over to our Deloitte team to close us out this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Alicia, for leading us through that question and answer session. So again, like we said, we are going to move towards our evaluation and just closing comments here. So in a second, what we're going to do is move to our next slide, which is going to show you the evaluation link. And what we're going to do as well is we're going to put that evaluation link in your chat. So again, we're going to put that in the chat in just a second. You can go ahead and click that, and it will take you to the evaluation for today's training. So we greatly appreciate everyone participating, following along, and doing those knowledge check questions with us. Like I said, please go ahead and take this evaluation just to let us know what you liked, what you think we can improve upon. And again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And again, we hope that you found this to be informative and that it was a good use of your time, which I think it was. So again, appreciate everyone being here today. And when you're done with the evaluation, you are free to go and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. So thanks again.